this computer. There we go. All right, and good afternoon, everybody. Dave, WO2X, and we got a bunch of people in here. We got Ron, WB2WGH, Alan, WA9WD, Mike, VE3CKO, Dan, VE6TD / KU7R, and Warren, KD4Z. Hello, Warren. And what we're going to do is go through how to integrate the Stream Deck to Node-RED. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And what I've got here is I've got a 32-button Stream Deck that, let me turn my video on, that would help. Start video. There we go. So I've got a 32-button Stream Deck, and I've got buttons here, and it's hard to really see, but for example, the top button here is my tuner operate standby. So right now, you can't really see it, but it says tuner operate in green. When I push it, it puts the tuner to standby, and the button actually goes gray. You really can't see it on this camera. This camera kind of sucks. But it does take the tuner between operate and standby. And so what's happening is I've created images, the PNG images for the Stream Deck using the Stream Deck utility, and I've created these images. And what happens is I convert the images to what they call base 64, and in Node-RED, I take the base 64 and put it into a function node, and I'm using if statements. So when I get feedback from the tuner that says it's in standby, it sends the base 64 image for the standby image to the Stream Deck. So when I push the button and it goes from operate to standby, I'm getting positive feedback from Node-RED that the tuner did indeed go to standby, and then it sends the image to the Stream Deck, and the Stream Deck indicates that it's in standby. It'll say tuner standby with a gray background button. So again, for share screen, I don't know what all my other buttons I had all these buttons, and when I went and changed the screen resolution on the main screen, the buttons are kind of all over the place. So let me share my main screen right now. And I'll just drag a few of them into the center of the screen here because they all moved. I had just reorganized everything, but these buttons are all sitting over here. And these are all buttons that I made that are for the Stream Deck to send the image to the Stream Deck depending on what's going on. So we have a whole bunch of different buttons here. So the first thing is in the Stream Deck, we need to make sure that the plugin, and when I start up the Stream Deck software, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up the Stream Deck software that is actually on my NUC that is running the Stream Deck. The Stream Deck's plugged into an Intel NUC where I'm running FR Stack, PST Rotator, and the Stream Deck software here. So in the Stream Deck, you can see these different buttons I have, like tuner operate. And if you use the arrow here, you can actually change between operate and standby. When you set, you can create different icons. So if you look at it, it's using the WebSocket. If you look at the title is blank, and that will be filled in from the button that comes in. The button is created with the title on the button. And then the WebSocket command, because I'm running the Stream Deck software with my Node-RED server, I'm using the loopback address. So it's sending the WS WebSocket : / loopback address : 1880, which is the port for Stream Deck, and then / Stream Deck. So that's how it's sending it to to Node-RED. And then what I need to do is each button has an individual ID. So in this case, the tuner operate standby button is TGXL state for the state of the tuner. So if we look at the plugins within Node-RED, you could see we have two that we've added, custom ones, WebSocket Proxy and WebSocket Proxy Multi-State. So these are the two that we have used, and this one is a custom, it's WebSocket Proxy is what we're using. And if you were to go into the Stream Deck, you can add custom ones. And if you go into Stream Deck Store, is where you can find these different plugins. So you go into the Stream Deck Store plugins and you could search and you could go WS Proxy, and it probably doesn't find it. Trying to remember where it was. It's been a while, but I've added the WebSocket Proxy, which is actually part of the Stream Deck. So let me just do this real quick.
Yeah, I had trouble finding the plugin, so.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've done this, and while I'm looking it up.
Dave, if you search for proxy, I think it finds it.
Okay.
Called, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the one I installed here. And this is the one I installed, and I had to download it from GitHub. And when you go to file, it brings you in, and one of them was the plugins for the WebSocket Proxy.
So there is one available through the store called WebSocket Proxy,
Right.
by Jan Bezel. Are they one and the same?
I don't know. I did it actually through GitHub, now that I'm remembering. So that GitHub site, if I go back into GitHub, and then in GitHub, if you go in and search for WS Proxy, and
just to let you know, I did download the WebS proxy from the web store just now, and it did install both the
okay.
WebS
All right,
proxy and the WebX proxy multi-state.
Okay, so they have added them to the store since I first did this. Initially, they were not in the store. So to get to the store, the little keyboard icon up on top here, we click here, and under plugins, if you search, as I said, for proxy,
That's
and WebSocket Proxy. So it's
okay.
installed.
It's already installed. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have updated it. Initially, it was only on GitHub, but now it's installed. So you would download, just search for proxy, and it's WebSocket Proxy. Go ahead and install that first. And then what we would do is, what I'm going to do is take a blank one, for example, and you would just scroll down to your custom plugins here, and you would just drag it in. And then what you would do is for the WebSocket, again, it's WS for WebSocket : / loopback address if it's running on the same computer as the Node-RED server. If not, it would be the IP address of the Node-RED server, 1880, and then / Stream Deck. And that's the address that I used. And then you need an ID. For this ID, we'll say example with a capital E. All right. So now I've created the button, but there's no image. So there's two ways you could do it. You can have a button that's a static image that you can set from the file. Let's say I wanted to set from file. I've already created PNG images on the computer. And what I could do is I could turn around and take any one of these that I've created and then hit open, and it would I created one with a green background. If you wanted to add text to it, you could say on, and you would add text to the button. So if you just want a button on the Stream Deck to send a command to Node-RED, but not get any feedback from Node-RED, this is how you would do it. And what you could do is, instead of sending from file, is you can create an icon. So if I do a create new icon, for example, it brings up Gato's website. It brings up a tool here that allows you to create icons. So they have a whole library of different icons that you can choose from, and you can change colors of the background color. So over here, you can add a solid background. You can add a semi-transparent. So the semi-transparent overlay is here, and you can change the color, and you can make it whatever color you want for the semi-transparent. And then you can add on top of it, if you wanted, you can add a custom icon for, if you're turning on a lamp or something like that. And you can add text to it. You can, if you want to add text, you can say on, and click to add. And what we could do is we just delete the click to edit, type on, and you could just sit there and move it. Well, you can move the light bulb. And then when you click here, you can move the text and have on or off. So you can create an on icon and then an off icon if you wanted. And this would be if you're getting feedback from Node-RED on the status of something. So you can have it say on or off. So this is how I created the icons that I have here. And on the desktop, what I have is, let me get out of here, out of the BNC viewer. And on the desktop, what I have is I have all these icons I created for the antenna tuner, the amplifier, and the 2x8 antenna switch as well. So if you notice antenna, I have, if I line these up correctly, I have antenna A, Yagi, antenna A, 30-meter dipole, and antenna A G5RV, and then the same thing for antenna B. And then for the tuner, I have tuner 1, which is radio 1, and then tuner 2, so whichever one is active. And then I have a radio 1 button here as well. And then antenna A, antenna B, I have none. So if I don't have an antenna selected, it would show, just putting these in order here. And so what would happen is, if I don't have this on, if I don't have these on right now, and then the tuner operate and the tuner standby. And then the antenna, that's a duplicate of the other button. So I've created these buttons, and these buttons are based on feedback from the Power Genius amplifier, from the Tuner Genius, or the Antenna Genius. So we've gone ahead in the Stream Deck, and what we've done in the Stream Deck is we've set up the WebSocket proxy, and we've gone and created, if I go back one page, I have these buttons here. So for the tuner operate standby, I use TGXL state. For the amp operate standby, I use PGXL state. To initiate a tune cycle, I have TGXL tune. Now this button does not get feedback from the tuner. This is just push it, and the tuner will go through a tune cycle. And then over here, I have TGXL radio, and it'll show either radio 1 or radio 2, whichever side of the tuner is active at that point. In the other column here, I have my Antenna Genius, antenna A, and then antenna B, whichever one is active. Right now, everything is disconnected, so everything is just gray. And
Dave, one question on the WebSocket field.
yes.
The tail end of the URL /Stream Deck.
Right. That is what's being sent and I'll show you that in Node-RED. We need to send it so Node-RED knows where it's going. You can actually send multiple WebSocket messages out. So what we're doing is we're sending it to Node-RED, and we're saying the command that we're sending is Stream Deck. So we're saying, in essence, this command is coming from the Stream Deck. So in Node-RED, in the Node-RED editor, now I just want to go through the Stream Deck setup first.
Yep.
But so in the Stream Deck setup, again, just want to go through that, make that clear that that's what we've done is we created these WebSockets by just dragging in WebSocket proxy and then putting the command in for it. And if you notice when I toggle the tuner between operate standby, you can see it goes gray. And the same thing for amp operate and amp standby, which isn't working well, and we'll figure that out. But if I hit the tune button with my tuner and operate, it comes up with no band data because the radio is not on. I don't have the radio started. But it would go through a tune cycle. So just for example, things got messed up on my computer here, so I got to find it. If I come back in and start the radio, and then go back in and look at, this is within the Stream Deck software that's talking to the Stream Deck. So now if you notice antenna A here, this blue button came up G5RV. I'm on 80 meters right now. So if I change bands, I go to 17, it changes to Yagi. And so it's getting feedback from the radio to, it's getting feedback from the radio going to the Node-RED, and Node-RED is in turn sending this image back to the Stream Deck. And that's how it's setting it. So this AG antenna A is the ID, so it knows what it's receiving when if you're pushing a button or if it's just a button getting status back from Node-RED, that when you create a button to interface between Node-RED and the Stream Deck, you need to have a unique ID assigned to that button. So now that sets up pretty much the Stream Deck software. So now in Node,
Dave,
yes,
if I can just get one quick clarification. So on the button you're showing right now, antenna A Yagi, that is part of the image. And so the title, you're saying we're leaving blank for all of these custom buttons,
yeah.
right?
For example, as I said, if I'm creating something, a new button, I would just drag in here WebSocket proxy. I would drop it in. I would put in WS for WebSocket : / and then the address of my Node-RED server.
Yep.
:1880, and then /Stream Deck lowercase. And so that's what we put in. And then the ID, we could say new button. And we'll just leave that one in here with no title. So that's just a blank button. Now we can create, again, a custom button. And
So where I got confused, Dave, is when you said you created the images,
yeah,
and then the PNGs, and then you convert them to base 64.
yeah, that's going to be part of what we're going to do, and we're going to go through that.
Oh,
That's
from Node-RED. Okay.
From Node-RED, yes.
Got it. Okay,
so,
thank you.
Yeah, so all we're doing now is using the custom editor here, create new icon, and we create these icons. So if you have relay one on, relay one off, you would create a new icon. You could do a semi-transparent background, or you could do a solid background. So we did semi-transparent. You select the color up here in the upper right, and we can choose whatever color we want for on. Want something that's a little bit more red, we can go something in the red, something in about there. And then what we could do is, if it's, let's say it's a light bulb, we could do a light bulb. Yeah, get out of here. We could do a light bulb if we want, and then we could add custom text to it, as I showed before, and just double click it. And what we have to do is just delete the text that's there, type on. And if we click on that on, if we click out of it and then click back, we can now move it. And now we could save that as the on icon for a light. So you would then just go save key, and that downloads save as. I'm going to hit save, and it's going to download to my, and you can open the folder where it saves it, but it saved it to Stream Deck key underscore key 8. We can rename this to, if we want, get out of here, stop. We can rename it and call it light on, just so we know what it's called. And then the same thing, you would create one for light off. Now, again, I already created the icon, so I'm not going to go through the whole steps of creating it, but now we have a new button here, and we created the light on, light off. Let's say we created our icons. The next step is we're pretty much done once you lay out the buttons in the Stream Deck. So if we go back page 1 of my Stream Deck, you'll see here that this is TGXL state. That's the state of the Tuner Genius on, or operator standby. I have amp PGXL state, which is operator standby. Actually does power up also. The tune button, TGXL tune, when I push it, just initiates a tune cycle. Tuner radio, TGXL radio, will show if radio 1 or radio 2 is active in the tuner. In other words, if the A or the B side of the tuner is active. The column over here, that one is just something I was playing around with that I never, that's just blank. But over here on the Antenna Genius is showing antenna A, which antenna is currently selected on the Antenna Genius, and then antenna B, in this case, none, so it's gray. And again, these icons and the names are coming from Node-RED. They're not set here, so the title is left blank.
Okay.
So the icon here, again, we're just leaving it blank. We're not setting an icon. The only thing we're doing is putting the WebSocket command in with Stream Deck. So when we send it to Node-RED, it knows it's coming from the Stream Deck, and we have to send the unique ID for each of these buttons. These buttons here are push and forget. So what I've done is these are, again, sending a WebSocket command to the Stream Deck, and I have Rotor 0 through Rotor 330. I did the azimuth bearing for the ID of the button. So I have Rotor 0, Rotor 1, it should be 120 for Africa, not 100. And 160 Caribbean, so it's Rotor 160, and you get the idea, 240. And then for my power control, these buttons, these go to the DLI Web Switch Pro. So again, these are custom buttons I created, which is either on, which is green, or off, which is red. So if I toggle the PC one, you'll see it goes green. I don't have anything plugged into it right now. And so again, what I did is DLI 1 through DLI 8, which corresponds to the 8 outlets in the DLI Web Switch Pro. And again, these icons are coming from Node-RED. They're not set in the Stream Deck. We're just setting the command that gets sent out for the WebSocket command and the ID. So anything coming from Node-RED back to the Stream Deck in response to me pushing the button. If I push the button, it's going to send a command to Node-RED, and we'll show how that command comes in, and it's appended with DLI 1, so it knows I pushed that button. That's the ID of the button. And so when it sees that button pushed, it's going to do something in Node-RED, and if necessary, we'll send a command back as a WebSocket response. So if it comes in on the WebSocket with that ID, it sends the response back to that ID. So in the Node-RED editor, and what we're going to do here is I pretty much have a tab here for Stream Deck. And what happens here is you drag in on the left, you do WebSocket in, and that's this node here that we have on the left. And then we have, let me shrink this a little bit, is we have down here in the corner a WebSocket out. And so if we were starting with a new one, we would just drag in WebSocket in and WebSocket out, and then we would build in between. So in here in my Stream Deck flow for WebSocket in, it comes in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a debug node here, so when we push a button, you can see what actually comes in. And so I'm going to go current flow, clear the garbage can, and I'm going to push, we got to deploy. And don't worry about the error message here. It's because I was playing around. But you have the message payload here. If I push the PC button, you'll see what comes in here now is, if I copy this, bring up Notepad, it's easier because it'll scroll off the screen. I always use Notepad when I'm doing this. I'll copy and paste it into Notepad, and I'm able to have the command. So the remote server sent, here's the command it sent right here, Stream Deck. And the ID it sent is DLI1. So, so it sends an ID and it sends, from the remote server. So again, if I push it and it comes in here, it's coming in as a string. And again, the ID right here, DLI1, and then the remote server is the address where it's coming from. So the Stream Deck in and Stream Deck out are nodes that I found in the palette manager. And if I search for node red contrib stream, it's the Stream Deck WebSocket. Node red contrib Stream Deck WS. So it's the WebSocket Stream Deck plugin. So once that's installed, you wind up right here. You wind up with the Stream Deck input and the Stream Deck output. So the Stream Deck input is this one here. And then I have a bunch of Stream Deck outputs, and I'll explain why I did a bunch of them. But the Stream Deck input pretty much comes in and tells it it's a Stream Deck input. And if I go and I plug in the debug to there now and then redo it, we'll see how it changes the message coming in from the DLI. So as I push the button on the DLI, you'll see now what it did is it came back as an object, and then you have a payload, and scrolling off the screen too fast. So anyway, you get the object, you get the payload. The payload is coming in, and then there's the settings right here. Anyway, never could figure out how to get that to stop, but you get a message.payload.event, and it's called key down. So every time you push it, it sends a, I'm going to ignore that. I don't know who that is, but they're getting ignored for now. So you get a message key down event that comes in, and in that event, if we look at the switch node, what we're looking for is when it's a key that equals key down, meaning that a button was pressed, it then passes it out. And what I'm doing here now is I'm sending that message key down event. You notice I send it to my rotor flow. I send it to the DLI web switch. I send it to the Tuner Genius, and I send it to the Power Genius. So if I were to look at the DLI web switch, what I'm doing with that when it comes in, when I get the key down event that comes in, which is right here, what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for DLI 123. I'm looking for that ID to come in. Message payload dot settings.id. It's payload twice. So it's message.payload.settings.id. And when it sees that coming in from the Stream Deck, and it's looking for the ID, DLI 1 through 8. So DLI 1 is the one that we were just playing with here. And I'll turn this off. And we're going to turn on the debug and come off of number 1 here. So as I come off of number 1, hit deploy. And I'm going to hit that PC again. You'll see that it comes in and not worried about the number. I'm worried more about the action. And then it comes in with the action. And Alan, how the hell do you get this to stop scrolling?
Well, what I do is I just deactivate all my other flows so that, you got error messages coming in, and so it's scrolling through the error messages.
Yeah. But
So
anyway,
I just turn off all my other tabs so that I got a clean, whatever I'm working on is clean.
yeah. Well, anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm setting, when it comes in, it is I'm actually setting message payload event set image, message topic outlet 1, the topic outlet 1, and then the payload true is what turns the outlet on. Message topic outlet 1 and message payload false turns it off. And then the message payload event is the set image. And so what I've done is, I'm trying to remember where I did it, is I'm actually setting trying to remember where I did it, but I'm actually setting the relay state and saving the relay states. So flow set right here, DLI 1, and what this is doing here in the split relay node is it's setting into the flow variable the state of each of the buttons. So if I were to look at flow variables, if I were to click up here and go to context data, you can see right here, here's my flow variables. And in Node-RED, you can change in the settings .js file to save this to a file on the Node-RED server. So if you power down and power on again, it will remember the state of these buttons, the current state of the DLI web switch. So you can see DLI 1 is true right now, which it's on. If I push it and turn it off, and I hit refresh here, it changed it to false. So all I'm doing now is taking this from the Stream Deck. This is a link in and a link out. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a link in coming from the Stream Deck. That's what this node is down. This node down here is a link in, and so that's a link in, and it comes from the Stream Deck flows. If I go back to my Stream Deck flow, that corresponds to the DLI out, which is right here. So it comes in, as we said, into here, into the Stream Deck. And if we go back to debug and hit the button, so it comes in here as a key down event with the message ID of DLI 1. And so the switch node just filters out and says, pass only if it equals key down message payload.event. So any of these are passed out and then sent to the individual flows. They are all sent to each of the flows. And then over here, the switch node then looks at the ID, message payload.settings.id, and it's looking for that ID that we set in the Stream Deck buttons when we created the buttons and dragged in the WebSocket proxy, and we set the ID for the buttons. That's DLI 1 through 8. And then it comes out of DLI 1, and what I'm doing here then is saying, okay, it's doing flow get DLI 1. If it's false, meaning that it's off, it's saying, okay, message payload is now true, and an outlet, message topic is outlet $1 equals, and then the message payload event is set image. So that sends it to our curl login, which then formats it and sends it to the DLI web switch to turn it on. And again, it's doing that. Now back in the Stream Deck flow, when it sees, if you come down here now, this is the DLI web switch, and this is coming from the web switch out. So I'm getting feedback from the DLI web switch now. So when it comes in here, it's getting the information from the DLI web switch. And if I look at this message payload on right now, it's clear the garbage can, and I hit the button, and what it's doing is 0x9A and 0x9B. So it's sending a number, and that number is in hex. And so it's parsing the relay, and this is able to tell us from here, comes into a filter node that blocks unless values changed. And then over here is the math that basically takes that hex number and breaks it down into to say, okay, if all messages are off, or if all of them are off, technically, and I'm not sure, well, I guess we could turn everything off. I'll turn the radio off, the high server, 12 volts, and the RT21 controller. So if you notice the message coming in is 0, I have no outlets on. So hexadecimal, if I turn the first one on, I'm going to get a 1. Now, if I turn that off, turn the second one on, I'll get a 2. Now, if I turn 1 and 2 on, what is it going to be? 3. So it just keeps, hexadecimal. So it keeps adding up. Least significant bit is the first relay up to the most significant bit, which is the last relay. So if I turn on the last one, which is my radio on, there's no 12 volts, you notice I'm getting a number of 80. And then if I turn on the 12 volts, you'll see I now get 88, and I got my turbo fans. There's a bug with the antenna gene, with the tuner, that they need to, I have one of the early tuners, and there was a bug with the early tuners that you apply 12 volts, sometimes you turn around and go to full fan speed. You just turn it off, turn it on to fix it. So again, what I'm doing is I'm coming out with the parse relay state here with the number, and that number in turn is being sent to the Stream Deck. So in the Stream Deck, it comes in over here and comes into here, and this is basically the same math that I was using, to go ahead and set the condition of the relays for the Web Switch Pro. So it's exact same math that I was using in the DLI web switch. And then what I'm doing is saying, okay, for number 1, I'm saying if the message payload is true, if it's on, it sends message image, and then it sends this big long string. And if I were to bring this to full screen, this image it sends, and if I go to the right, it actually is a very long string of information. And what that is that PNG file for the image for the message on, that's in base 64 format. So I use, there's a number of online tools, and convert PNG to base 64, for example. And there's a number of online converters that you can use. And so local file, I'm going to choose one of the files that's on my desktop here. And let's just say we want to use, I don't know if I had the ones for the, that would correlate to the, well, just use the amp operate, for example. And this is an amp operate icon. And what I'm going to do is encode to base 64. And then this is the actual base 64 equivalent for that icon. So I can copy this. And in the Node-RED editor now, in this function node, and if I look down, for example, for the Power Genius, and if message payload equals idle, which is the operate condition, you have to put this piece in manually here where it says data :image / PNG / base 64 comma, and then you would paste after that information from the conversion, this information here where it says base 64, would, that would be pasted after that. So and what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish my flows up online so people can go in here and see how I did this. So if you look, if the message state equals standby, you get that data image PNG / base 64 comma, and then following it is the base 64 information for the standby icon, which it would say standby, and it would be a gray icon. If we look over here and we look at the amp operate, which is the second icon down, if I put the amp to standby, which we can do from here. Well, operate standby. I'm not sure why it's not picking up on the Stream Deck. I have to look at that. I'm running some beta firmware in my amplifier, but we'll use the tuner as an example. If I take the tuner and I put it to standby, you'll see it goes to gray. And so on the Stream Deck, what you saw on the screen is what you see on the Stream Deck. So again, if we looked at the Tuner Genius here, the information coming in, I sent that information in twice, and the reason I did this is one of them is the state. It's either standby or operate, and so standby is going to send this base 64 equivalent of a gray icon with it saying standby, and it says tuner standby. And when I am in this state of operate, so when the tuner is sending that it's an operate, it's going to send this image, which is a base 64 equivalent of it saying tuner operate with a green background. So you follow so far, I guess? Right? Okay. So so again, going back to the DLI, I just use this math here to break that number down into the individual relays. And then all I did is in the function node, if it's true, meaning that the relay is on, it's sending the on image to that button ID. So in this case, the first output was DLI1. And then I found this node called message, is it image.tools? Yeah, Node-RED contrib image-tools is the node. And what that does is it adds in some image tools, which are right here. And the one we use is image. And so what it does is it takes that base 64 information, it sends it into this node. It says that message.image, which is the name that we're using in the function node, message.image. It's saying we're taking that message.image in, and it's base 64, and the output property, we're still keeping it message.image. And then I do a set message property, and what this is doing is it's doing some JSON here, which I found online, so don't even ask, but this is the format that we needed to put it in. So the event is set image, the context is just context, and then the payload is the image, which is message.image. So it does some, what happened? I deleted it. It went bye-bye. Tell you what, we'll just refresh. Otherwise I lose it. And you ever do that? If you ever make a mistake and somehow accidentally delete something or something when you're doing it, if you just reload, it will delete all of your changes you made. So as you're working, as you're making changes and you know that the changes are good, say, deploy and deploy often. Then if you have to, you can just do what I did and reload. Then you use the Stream Deck out node, which again, we covered how to load those Stream Deck in and out nodes. And so the name is Stream Deck. I just put a name, so I had a name with it. What's important is the ID. Where is it going to? Where are we sending it? We're sending it to DLI1. So when it gets to the Stream Deck, it's going to say, look for the button with ID of DLI1. This is where it's going. And then it says, what are we doing? We're sending it an image named message.image. And this image node is formatting it to the proper base64 image to go into the Stream Deck. So, and then the output of that is going to the WebSocket out. So if we look at the WebSocket in / Stream Deck, it says listen on, and so it's just listening for WebSocket commands from any place, and it's listening for / Stream Deck. So any commands coming in for Stream Deck are coming in and being passed out of this WebSocket in node. And then after we do everything to send the image back, it goes out the output. So it's still, the settings are the same, but it's a WebSocket out and / Stream Deck. So what happens is, as it comes in, if anything comes in with that WebSocket ID for that event, it will in turn send out a response, a WebSocket response. So if we look at the debug here and say, I want to look at this, and we want to look at this at the input here. So I'll hit deploy. I'm trying to figure out which one this is where it's at. Hold on. So it's this one here is getting the Power Genius. So I have an issue with my Power Genius flow. So what I'm going to do for now is just disable this node so we get rid of those errors. As I said, I was playing around with the Power Genius stuff, so we'll deploy it. So that should get rid of all those errors we saw scrolling across the screen. So if I clear this and I hit button 1, we get an input action here that comes in as an event key down. And then in turn, there's a key up. When we push it in, there's a key up that comes in, but it also sends an image back out. It says set image. And if we look at the payload, that's the image in base64 format that it's sending back to the Stream Deck. So these WebSocket in and WebSocket out. So as it receives a command coming in, it then sends the command back out. And when it goes to set image, if we were to again drill down in set image and then under the payload, it has the message payload, but it also knows the ID of where it's going. They kind of paired up together, similar to an HTTP in and out node. So that's kind of how I'm doing it. Again, the takeaway from this is in the Stream Deck setup, what we're doing is, again, loading in the WebSocket proxy from the store And if you search in the store for proxy, WebSocket proxy, we installed that. And then once that's installed, I'm just going to go to page 2 here so we have room to play. All they're doing is dragging the WS proxy, which is under the custom over here on the right, dragging that into a button. And in the button, you just put in WS:// the IP address of your Node-RED server :1880, and then we're using /stream deck to identify it's coming from the stream deck. And then you have to have a unique ID for each button that you're adding. So if you're adding just a generic relay, you can call them relay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're doing something that's going to get feedback, you would leave the button icon over here on the left. You would leave this just at the generic, and you would leave the title blank, and then it would get that information from Node-RED as you see when we create the base64 image. If you're just going to have like a tune button, which is a fire and forget command, as I say, you're just pushing the button and it's sending the information to Node-RED and it's not getting a response. Again, you can create a button using the custom feature where it says create new icon. And that brings up the Gato online button creator. And you can create buttons with either a solid background or a transparent background. On the upper right, you can change your color to whatever you want. And you can add icons, you can add text, you can add all kinds of stuff to it. So you can make whatever icons you want. You could probably even do custom graphics. There's probably other libraries that you can add in addition to what I have. So once you create these, and you can add text to them if you want. And again, these are layered. So if you see, I have rectangle 0, I have sun. Sun is the icon. And so these are different layers that are put on the button. If I add a text box, that text box gets added where it says click to edit, that's the text box. So these are different layers that are added to the button. And so you would create this and then save key, and it would save right here, and you could do save as, and now you can sit there and rename it to whatever you want for a key name, and so it creates that PNG file. And then once we have the PNG file created, the next step would be to convert those PNG files to base64. And again, there's several online programs to do this. So just a convert PNG to base64. I hate Bing as a search engine, by the way. I love Google, but Bing happened since I loaded Windows 11. It made Bing my default. I got to change it. But anyway, convert ping to base64, and there's plenty of them online. Here's another one. And right here, you can just import from file, and we can select any of these. Here's my 6600M icon. I hit open, and that's the icon I have for 6600M. This would be the base64 equivalent for it. So you can just hit copy to clipboard. And again, when you edit in Node-RED here, the function based on the input. So what I'm doing here, for example, under the Tuner Genius, the first one happens to be the state. So if message.state from the Tuner Genius flow, if message.state equals standby, it's going to send this image. So what we need to do is we need to tell it it's a base64 image. So you got to append this in front of it, data : image / PNG semicolon base64 comma. So that's appended in front of, and then you paste what you did on the conversion when you copied to the clipboard. And that would be the image that would be sent when the tuner's in standby. So for example, the icon I used was the 6600M icon. So let's just go and change that just to show you what it would do. So we have it appended. So if I come over here and paste that, and then, right. And so this is the whole image now that we just pasted in there. And it ends with a double quote semicolon. So if you look at the beginning of it, it's data colon image slash PNG semicolon base 64 comma, and then the rest of it. But right in front of data is a double quote. So at the end of that, we have a double quote and then a semicolon. And so, and then, you know, the other thing is this whole thing on right here, if it's an if statement. So if, and it has to be in this, you know, the brackets, message.state double equals, and then because it's a text field or a string, it's a double quote standby. So if it sees that string, then you have the end of the quote, I mean, the end of the bracket, and then you're using what they call the mustache bracket to open it, and it's going to execute message.image, and it's going to set the image, and at the end of it, after this, the next line is going to be the close mustache bracket right here, and then return message. So what I've done is I've just changed that icon, and I got an error. Why do we have an error? Missing semicolon before statement, unclosed string, missing semicolon. All right, so I screwed up. So if I go back here, it seems like I messed up, but this is like, it's not the second one, it's the first one we want. Message equals standby right here. And I've seen this before, that it's kind of weird with the, so if we go back to the conversion, this was the base 64 conversion here. So I'm going to copy this again. And paste right there. And then at the end of the CC, it's going to be a double quote and then a semicolon. And when I hit done, should be no errors now. Now we just have the blue dot. Now if I deploy it, so what's going to happen when I go to tuner standby, instead of getting the tuner standby icon, I should get a picture of my radio, because that's the image that we loaded. So if I minimize him and we go back to page 1, I got to turn the tuner on. I got to turn the 12 volts is on. Yeah, so the tuner's on, and the tuner's in standby. And so I must have pasted in both places, but it's sending the 6600 image instead of the original image. If I go back to my editor in here, I would have to convert those tuner images. So if I go back to here and select an image from file, what I want is my tuner in standby. And I'm going to copy this to clipboard. All right, so copy the whole thing to clipboard. And I'm going to come back in, and in the Tuner Genius, if message equals standby, we're going to paste this in. Paste it. And at the end, we're going to add the double quote. And if you notice that I've always noticed a bug in Windows that you have to be one character to the right of what you're trying to change, or else it doesn't work. I don't know why. It's a bug, but CC, and then you have to have a semicolon also. And then we want a line feed so that on the second line here, there we go. So that's what we need for standby. And then what we're missing is operate. So I don't know how I got it messed up, but I did. But anyway, we'll change standby for now. And if we go back and we look at the Stream Deck, you see tuner standbys in gray. And I don't have a tuner operate coming in. I don't have a statement in there for tuner equals operate. So back in the editor, in this function node here, I'm going to do else if, and I'm going to paste that whole thing that we just did, and I'm going to change standby to operate. And what I need to do now is convert the image and then load that image. So we go back to the image converter, import from file. We scroll down, we find tuner operate. Hit open. Again, I had created these using the Gato online icon creator. I selected the background color and added the text box. And I'm going to go to copy to clipboard and come back into Node-RED. And what I'm going to do now is add this here. Control V to paste it. And at the end, I'm going to add a double quote and a semicolon. Right. And done. I'm trying to figure out why I have an error.
Oh, else if.
Yep. Okay. Because I copied if in the beginning and I typed else if. Okay. So now if I deploy it, what will happen is what we loaded in the first image is the tuner standby, and the second image is tuner operate. Tuner standby in gray and tuner operate in green. So if I go back and look at my Stream Deck, we have tuner standby and tuner operate. So it's hard to see on the screen, but it shows up nicely on the Stream Deck. All right, so that's pretty much my buttons and how I integrated it in between the Stream Deck using the WebSocket proxy command. And for example, for the Rotor, it's interesting. Again, I'm sending these buttons and I'm not getting feedback coming back from the Rotor controller. I'm just sending it out. So I created the title 0 North, and I'm sending it to the Stream Deck with the address that we have, and I'm sending Rotor 0. So that's coming into the Stream Deck node, and it's coming in, and what it's doing is it's sending it out to my Rotor flow here, Rotor out. So my Rotor flow, I have Rotor incoming in down here. Stream Deck in right here. So that comes in, and so what this is doing is it's saying, okay, let's parse out the word rotor. And then what we're doing is taking the 3 characters after rotor. So in this case, it's 0. And it's then in the beginning of it, what we're doing is taking a whole thing and making it into an integer. So it's taking message.payload.settings.id substring. So it's taking that payload coming in right here and saying, okay, starting at the 5th character. So remember, it starts at character 0. So rotor 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be rotor. So the 5th character is the actual payload we're looking for, which is 0. And then we're taking the 3 digits afterwards. and we're turning that into parse integer, so it's coming out as a number. So if you look, if we were to put a debug node right here, what we if we start here coming in, just to show how this works. We'll turn this one off, by the way. So if I hit rotor north 0, it sends a key down, and the event is key down, and payload settings ID is rotor 0. So it's message.payload.settings.id. And you can actually copy, if you take that, you can actually copy that path from the debug, and that's how you would get that. So it's sending rotor 0. Then in the next node, we're parsing out the word rotor and converting it to a number. So if I deploy this and hit it again, you'll see when I hit the button, it comes up as message payload is a number and is at 0. And then that's sending it from there into my as input, which then formats it correctly to go to PST Rotator. I'm using PST Rotator in between to talk to my rotor. And reason I'm doing that, so you guys know, is going back into here in PST Rotator, I have the ability in my rotor flow that I've added. I have a call input and I have a log contact field. And this actually, the call input was going to AC log, but I've changed it where the call input now on the rotor flow, if I go to my dashboard, the call input field, and I got to probably scale this down a little bit. Right here, call sign. If I put in, let's say, K4XV, right? He's in Hawaii. And I hit enter, and it does nothing right now because I'm in manual. If I enable tracking and I put in K4XV, it sends it to PST Rotator. All right, what broke? I broke something. It's supposed to send it to PST Rotator, which in turn does a lookup in the FCC database, or for US call, or it goes into the prefix database if it's an international call, and it will turn, and it should turn my rotor. I got an error here because it is. Right now, the flow that I'm using was using AC log, so I'll load AC log and it'll work. So it should come up. That error should clear.
Papua New Guinea, 15.
Uh-oh, we've got a new DXCC country. So again, if I go into tracking, I put in K4XV and I hit enter, it's supposed to send it, there you go, sends it to AC log in turn does a call sign lookup and returns the azimuth for the call, and then sends it back to the rotor flow, where when I'm in tracking mode, it will then turn the rotor to the call sign I entered. I can do that, work the call sign, and then once I work them, if I click on log contact, it sends the API command to AC log to log that contact. And it'll pick up my current operating frequency and mode that I'm on. So 282, so there it goes, it went to Hawaii. So
Hey,
just
Dave.
yeah.
Well, I know we're getting close on running out of time, but if there's an interest and if you're acceptable, I could quickly show them, my Stream Deck flow. That it's a little bit,
Yeah.
It's a much simpler approach, but it doesn't use the graphics, but they also might have an interest.
Right. If somebody wants to just have buttons that they can push and have it do something without having feedback from a device.
Is there an interest in that? If no, then we'll
Yeah,
just,
that's what I've been trying to do is, I don't have a Flex, I don't have Rotor Genius,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. I've got a pretty basic station, and I've been trying to get this to work, you know, to talk to the radio. It's just, I've got a
Yeah,
FT1000. So the simpler, the better, because I think I can build on what I learned from that. And
Yeah.
Dave,
Well,
I've
Dave,
been learning a lot. I've got a couple of questions that I'll hold off to the end.
Yeah,
So,
David,
Alan,
if it's okay
please.
with you, I could quickly just show them my
yeah,
one.
Alan, why don't you, since we're doing this, we'll show them another approach of integrating the Stream Deck to Node-RED. Again,
Yeah.
my approach has two ways of doing it. One is using the WebSocket command. If you can just send a command and just create an icon here. And what I did is I created a new icon and then set the icon here where the other icons were pretty much, as you saw on page 2 here, they were just generic. There was nothing loaded until an image came back from Node-RED. So either way works. Getting the information back that sends a base64 image to the button to change the button color, state, name, whatever, based on the feedback from Node-RED. Or what I did with my rotor buttons here is I'm sending rotor 0. It's stripping off the ROTOR, taking the 0, which is a string at that point, converting it to a number, and then sending it to the rotor. So if you have a button to turn an outlet on, let's say right here, you have a DLI web switch. What I'm doing is I'm sending DLI 3, and then in Node-RED is where I'm actually doing the math. When it gets DLI 3, it's taking it in, and it comes in, and in the switch here, it says if it's DLI 3, do something output number 3, and then output number 3 in turn sets the outlet on or off depending on the current state. It looks, if it's on, it sets it off. If it's off, it sets it on. So that's what I'm doing. But if you want to be able to have an ability to have two buttons, one button says turn the relay on, the other button says turn the relay off, you can do it much simpler than I'm doing it. So Alan, let me stop sharing, and you've got the
Can you give me the ability to share my screen?
Yep.
Can I do that?
Yeah, let me give you some abilities here. And before we get into this, with what we've done so far, hold on a second, I gotta go into security. Share screen. Okay, Dan, before we go any further, did you have any questions so far?
Yeah, I do. I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Could you go back to your the primary, like setting up the WebSocket in Node-RED? I'm
Yeah.
not connecting. I'm not connecting. So
Okay.
that's been my problem for months, which I haven't
Okay,
addressed
it could
this.
be a firewall issue, so you may need to open up to allow port 1880 to communicate from the Stream Deck software to Node-RED server. And if the Stream Deck is plugged into your PC and Node-RED's running on a Raspberry Pi,
It is.
when you set up the WebSocket proxy command, for example, this one here, this address here, 127.0.0.1, that would have to be the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, not the
Okay.
address of the loopback. So that has to be the Node-RED server address at that point.
Okay,
Here,
so I'll
what
just
I'm doing-
quickly,
Yeah, good.
yeah, I'll just quickly change one of my buttons to
Mhm.
that to see if I can get it connected. And sorry
Yeah,
to
it's-
interrupt.
yeah, no problem.
Dan there.
Yeah,
Okay, so 168.1 and then 1880. Okay.
yeah, colon 1880. And then again, depending on what you're doing with the WebSocket, if you're going to use the WebSocket going into Node-RED, just go /Stream Deck. And then in Node-RED itself, if we go back to my Node-RED flow here,
Mhm.
anyway, I gotta go over this little stuff in the way here. It's Stream Deck. So over here, the WebSocket Stream Deck coming in, I just say listen on, and I did /Stream Deck. So that has to match within the
Stream
setup of
Deck,
the Stream Deck,
okay.
that / Stream Deck at the end.
Okay, let me try to deploy to see if we get a connection. No, no, no connection.
Okay. I was going to say, if you want to email me your credentials for TeamViewer, we can connect in and debug it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that might be
Okay,
something.
I'll follow along and
Okay.
we'll go from there.
All right.
Okay.
Dan, what questions did you have so far? And then we're going to pass it to Alan, and Alan's going to show us a different way of being able to accomplish pretty much just having the Stream Deck be able to send WebSocket commands to Node-RED, but not as complex. In other words, it's not going to be able to change the button icons depending on the state of the device.
So one of the first things I noticed is you had in one of the examples where it's message.payload a second time,
Right.
.settings.id.
Right.
I never saw that documented anywhere, and I think
Yeah.
that's
And
been one
how-
of my problems. Is that just a quirk of?
how I got that. And again, if I look at what comes in on the Stream Deck node here, this message payload button,
Yeah.
if I were to sit there and go back here a second. Oh, never mind, I can do this. So if I clear this, for example, and I'm going to turn the output one off. And if I clear this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit input 1 and I'm going to copy it. And so I'm going to hit input 1, and that's turning the button off. So I'm just going to copy it and just come up here and paste it. And so what it did is it sent in here now, it says event is key down. I pushed the button. Key down means you push the button on the Node-RED, I mean on the Stream Deck. And it gives you your column 6.
Column and row. Yeah, I've seen that before.
So and it goes by the column going across. I don't know why it says column 6 should be 7. Okay, it starts at 0. So 0 through 6 and then row 0. So it's the 7th column from the left and it's the top button. So it starts at 0. So first column would be column 0. So it tells you which button you pushed. And it is multi-action false. And you can actually set up a multi-action button. So we can do one command when you push it and a different command when you release it. And then it sends over here, the ID equals DLI1. And then you get remote server WS here, this whole information. See if we can capture this. So if I were to actually look at the action over here and look at the payload in settings, and it goes too fast. I got to find a way to do this.
You got to
And over
shut
here,
down
if I
all
copy-
your unused, on all the other tabs.
If I copy path, which I just did now, and I just did that, I copied that path. And that's the path from there for Stream Deck, but that's not the one I wanted to do. So let's try this again. And there's got to be a way to slow that down. I got to read up on that. I think if you use the copy path, and actually it's this one we want copy path, the ID equals DLI1. So I hit copy path here on ID equals DLI1. And payload that settings.id. That's where you got it from. So what comes in from,
Okay.
so what
That's
comes
just
in
a
from-
quirk of this. Okay.
Yeah, this Stream Deck in node, which pretty much takes the WebSocket information in, and then what it does is it builds this payload ID. So it's just, it calls it message.payload.payload.settings.id. So it breaks it down, that ID, and it just creates that path to it, message.payload.payload.settings.id. So that's just something that it does right here in this node itself. And there's really no configuration in the node to change anything. It's just the way it is. So what I do here is I say, I'm looking for anything that's key down. When I push a button, it sends key down. That's one of the things it sends. And then when I release the button, it sends key up. So I can actually have it do one thing with key down. If I wanted something else, when I release the key, I can have that be done as well. But I'm just taking the switch node here to say, okay, it's key down. And then this is setting message.context to message.payload.context. And if we were to look at our context here, when we push the button, you're going to get the Stream Deck context in raw data format. So every time I push a button, I were to copy this and put this into Notepad. Let's refresh.
You got that dialog box there, cancel, delete.
I got copy value. Where's my mouse? The mouse is over in my other mouse.
Okay. So I think I got the.
Yeah. So what it does is every time I push a button, it updates. And if you notice this number here, this number associates DLI8 button, and that's how it knows the messages from that button. So this is where the WebSocket in and the WebSocket out, it looks for that number, that context. So when it sees a message coming in, it says DLI8. Okay, DLI8 is this number here. And when it sends it out, it sends it back out. So that's how it knows the response of where to go as far as a WebSocket command. That's just the way the WebSocket works. When it receives a message in, it sets this value here, which is a unique value for that button. If I reboot, that value would be different. So when I push the button DLI8, it adds it to the Stream Deck contexts, and that's how it knows where to send a message back. So in the payload going back, this number would be included, so the Stream Deck knows, hey, it's a response from the message. When we push the button, it's getting a response back. And so again, that's kind of how we're doing it. And then these numbers here, DLI 1 through 8, which show the actual status of the buttons, I'm doing that again over here in the flow set when I set the status. And then I have set up Node-RED in the settings.js that the global context and if I look at context and data, you have flow context, you have global context, which is nothing. If I refresh global, you'll see I have a bunch of global context and node context, but I really don't use that. But flow context, what I'm doing is taking these button states, which is the state of the relays. So if I reboot the Raspberry, or in this case, the Intel Nuke that Node-RED is running on, it will go back and look at the file on the Node-RED server and set the buttons accordingly. So I get the proper icons coming up on the Stream Deck. Without doing that, it wouldn't know what the button status is until I push the button. So.
All right, thanks for that, Dave.
Mhm.
That was pretty much my only question. So.
Okay, so Alan, you got the floor. I'm going to stop sharing. And if you want to show us your method of doing it, which again is a simple push the button and send something to Node-RED, go ahead.
See if I can share the screen here. Hopefully I can do it.
Yeah, I gave permissions.
Is it going through at all?
Warren, did you say something?
Your
audio is all messed up. It sounds like Mickey
It's
Mouse.
an interesting sound
Yeah.
effect.
Oh,
Try changing your microphone and change it back or something.
I got it. My Macintosh, of course, is doing its security thing. I gotta give it permission to use my screen. Oh, it wants me to quit and reopen, so I'll tell you what, if there's an interest in, I know it's been a long day, but if there's an interest in my approach, maybe you guys can.
Yeah, we could do a separate video with,
schedule another
with
Zoom,
your.
but
with
I gotta quit Zoom and restart it, because I
Okay.
didn't have my Mac doesn't know who you are yet.
Mhm.
One other question, Dave, would
Yeah.
you be willing to share your flows for
Yes,
this
yes.
sample that you showed today?
Of course. Now that we have a video to go along with it, I'm going to post my flows up as a zip file, which will be complete. The only thing I'll do is any passwords like for DLI and stuff, I'll just
Right, of
set the
course.
default. But I didn't want to share them until we had an explanation of what I was doing,
Yeah.
because otherwise people load them and they wouldn't know.
Well,
what
the
to do.
context is not there, and that's important. So,
Right.
that's my biggest learning today
Mm-hmm.
is that context. I had, unlike Mike, who's having trouble getting Stream Deck and Node-RED to connect, mine shows connected in the flow that I tried. What I was not getting is, there was a couple of missing pieces in there for getting the image, for example, right? I was seeing the key down message, the key up message, and I wasn't clear on the button ID, but now you've explained that, and thanks for
Right.
that. So that part makes sense. And then I guess the last one that I'm going to be looking to see, yeah, I did the
base 64.
64 conversions. I've
But
got that
you
done.
need to make sure in the beginning of it, though, that you have that data : image / PNG.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look
basic.
and see if I had that
Yeah.
part. And then the next one I wasn't sure of is where you've got the set message.payload. And there's stuff I saw in there. That's why I wanted to have you see
Yeah, I
it.
just found that on
The
I
event
don't-
messages.
I found that on GitHub when I was playing around and I found the WS proxy.
Yeah.
They had an example and they said in the example, when you sent the image back out, they said you needed to have this JavaScript here that pretty much, told it, the event was a set image event. And then the context was just context. It was pretty much blank. And then the payload was the actual image that you're sending. So this pretty much just tells it that it's a set image event and that we're sending it an image as the payload.
Right.
And so that's kind of what that JavaScript does.
Yeah.
I
The
found
set
that
image
online
is
with
what I
one of
was
the
missing as
examples.
well.
Right. And again, that was just something, if you, when I upload the flows, if you just double click this, and if you click on the 3 dots here, it expands it and shows you the actual JavaScript.
Perfect.
It's really a JSON object.
So that's pretty much how I did it. And I tried using a single Stream Deck out node, but I found that in the Stream Deck out, it was easier to have each one individual with the ID that we're sending out. So if you notice here, I have DLI 1 through 8 on these Stream Deck ones here. Where we put it, but anyway. DLI 1 through 8. And then over here, this is our TGXL state. And this is the TGXL radio, which radio is active. And then down here under the Power Genius, I have, I got to figure out what I broke in that. Probably the firmware I'm running in my amp. PGXL state. And then down here, this is, again, for the Power Genius. or the Antenna Genius rather. I'm getting the Antenna Genius A or B, and it's picking up the actual, I created images for my 3 antennas I have, and it's loading the image depending on which antenna is currently active. So for example, right now, antenna A, you can't really read it, but it's G5RB. So if I switch the radio over to 20 meters, it's going to go and switch to the Yagi. If I brought up a second pan adapter and bring up the second pan adapter, and what happened to my second pan adapter?
Hey guys, I need to sign off now. If anybody's interested in the non-graphic button flow, just send me an email or something and we can set up a team view. But for now, I need to sign off.
All right, Alan, thank you.
73, everyone.
Take it
7-3.
easy,
Thank
Alan.
you, Alan. 73.
I
There
gotta
you
find
go.
out where's my button now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to duck out too. I have to get back to work.
Yeah,
You know, some of us have that affliction, I suppose.
yeah.
I certainly do.
Some of us are lucky, but anyway, here you go. For example, what I did is I just had set up the radio where antenna A is on a G5RB, which is on 40 meters, and antenna B is on a Yagi, which is on 20 meters. And if you notice the active radios on 80 meters, don't ask. It's not picking it up until I turn the DFO. There's some things in here that are broken right now. That's one of them is the frequency readout. And then my amp operate standby is broken. I've got to fix that. So I've got some work to do.
Restore from backup.
Yeah, it's not that. I'm doing some, I'm an alpha tester for Flex. So the firmware I'm running in the amplifier right now is probably causing some issues. And so I'm going to be loading, actually downgrading my amplifier to a new version that's going to be coming out shortly to the end users. And that will restore everything back to working again.
Well, that's a nice little hint there for PGL. I do have one complaint.
Yeah, what's
I'm
that?
in my basement shack, and there's no tubes to warm me up.
Man, you got to put the PGXL down there your feet and just like run FT8 on 20 meters at 1500 watts.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was trying to make a joke, but
Warren, did you get your audio fixed?
I don't know. Tell me if
Yes,
I did.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you did.
Ah,
All right,
Yeah.
so guys, Dave, I
okay,
will
see ya.
bail. Thank
Bye,
you so
Dan.
much. Good to hear you, Warren.
Good to meet everybody.
I'll stay in touch. I definitely learned a lot. So thanks
Mhm.
for that. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Okay, yeah, and again, if you get, like Mike, if you get stuck and you can't get it working, let me know and I'll work with you one-on-one on it, try to figure it out, what's going on.
All right,
Yeah,
73 guys.
Dave, what you've done is made more money fly out of my wallet because I'm probably going to have to buy one of those things now.
Now, this is the 32 button one.
Yeah.
So, the 15 button, I was just down at Micro Center. I don't know if you ever been to a Micro Center.
We've got one about 30 miles away.
If you remember Comp USA,
I do.
it's like a much better Comp USA.
Uh-huh. We've got one.
And so Micro Center up near me here in New Jersey has the 15 button Stream Deck on sale for $129, which I think they're normally $149 or $159. So I think it's like $20 or $30 off. They didn't have the 32 button, still $250.
Ouch.
But I mean, just the ability to, and I've been using it and working on, one of the things I'm working on for a demonstration I'm going to be doing out at the Pacific Northwest DX convention is going to bring my laptop out there and set it up with my iPad, my laptop, and the Stream Deck plugged right into the laptop and be able to operate the whole station remotely, right live, right there. Dave invited me out to be a guest speaker. So one of the things I've been working on is getting the Stream Deck to work outside of the local network. And that becomes a big plus for the remote operators.
oh yeah.
Well, I'll look into getting one. I might first try to get it to work with my own homebrew controller that I've been working up that now is all UDP driven through Node-RED. But I could make maybe a WebSocket interface on it and drop it in just like you were showing how
Right.
you were doing it too.
There was Simon, S53ZO, I think is his call. He runs the S53M contest station. I've been working with him. I'm getting him set up with Node-RED, and he's really kind of taken off with it. They have a controller that, hold on a second, just ignore it. My wife's calling. They have a controller that has, I think, 8 buttons on it, and I think it has a rotary encoder knob, and it's LCD backlighting, similar to the Stream Deck concept. And so he was looking to get it to work with Node-RED to be able to send images from Node-RED to this device for the different buttons and for the encoder that would, change colors depending on state of day. So if you hit a button for, let's say, amplifier, it'll go, green if it's in operate or blue if it's in standby or whatever color, but just different things like that. And he can send images, and what it does is it sends it pixel by pixel. So you got to convert the image into individual hexadecimal, which corresponds to all the pixels that make up the picture on the background of the device. And so actually I'm going to be talking to him on Zoom tomorrow, try and bang our heads together to figure that one out.
Hopefully not too much data. It might be sluggish.
Well, that's what we got to find out. I mean, it's what I found with the Stream Deck, it seems to behave, but again, it seems to be only sending commands when you push the button, so it's not continually communicating back and forth. So
I saw some events going by in your debug list that looked like it was polling something, or is that wasn't coming out of the Stream Deck, or
right
was
here
it
on the output?
Yeah,
I believe it was sending information.
yeah. It
So,
seemed to be. I don't know if you were doing that on purpose.
Hold on. Now my sister's
Because it
calling.
looks like it's sending a set image command out, so
Yeah.
excess traffic.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at the payload.
Before I had the mic on, I had a bunch of stuff in the chat that was answering questions.
I didn't even have the chat open. So
yeah. In the debug window, if you select see you've got current flow selected, drop that drop down, and you can select a single node. So if you select the node that you want to look at, then it will filter it out to just that node. So go select your debug node you want to look at. Remember, you were getting those errors. There's one.
yeah, it's coming through from the Stream Deck node right now. So
if you do the selected nodes, it should not show you those messages except for the ones from that node.
Yeah,
that's a good trick. Thank you, Warren.
I may have to do a deploy when you do this.
Also, you can double click on those messages and it'll take you to the message node, the debug node that made it.
Right.
So
right.
I've got to remember that too. If it's on the same flow tab, it won't change tabs. But yeah.
Yeah. So I've got stuff I've been changing around here and playing and testing, and I'm always doing something to try and make it better.
Oh yeah.
I know the Power Genius flow. I've broken something in here as I was playing with it.
All the time.
This debug is on right now. And that's probably why I was getting messages coming from there. But I know I do have something broken. What I do is I use a UI template node, and pretty much it's just taking message.label, the function. So when I push the button, amp operate, for example, in Node-RED. Oh, I'm on a diag screen. That's why my Power Genius failed. I have to look at the diag screen. So I have to reach over and reset the power on the amplifier. That's why it wasn't working. I mean, I didn't add diag screen to the output of the Power Genius.
And Warren, that's also handy because with the control key, you can select multiple debug nodes and then only watch the output of those selected nodes.
Yep.
Yeah, so now
Yeah.
what should happen is my Power Genius should clear. But again, I'm running some beta. There we go, standby. So if we go back to over here now, now the amp operate. It should go to standby, but I screwed something up. But if we go to my actual dashboard, I'm in operate and then standby. And then if you see the power up, when I turn it on, it goes power up and then idle. If I reach over and I hit whatever band's active on transmit, if I hit tune, you see it says transmit A. So I have it send all kinds of stuff. Again, that's being done right in here, where it sends it out, operate standby. These are the commands going out to the background color is going out to 2 different background colors, and then the text of the labels operator standby, and then the actual command going out to the amplifier here, operate equals 1 or operate equals 0. And again, that gets sent out, goes to the amplifier, and then when it comes back from the amplifier, it takes the information and I'm splitting it. And based on, I'm going to message parts, and then I get, all these stuff that comes out here where you can have, band A, band B, my AC voltage, my DC voltage, current SWR, power, PA temperature, harmonic load temperature. There's other fields also. I'm just not picking them off and displaying them. And a lot of that, the Antenna Genius, they posted the code for it. And if you look at the Antenna Genius flow, it's
Yikes.
yeah. This is actually set up to do two 2x8 switches, which is 2x16. And you can actually replicate this and double it to go 2x32. So if you had two radios and 32 antennas, the flow will actually do 2x32. But
Seems like you could combine that in a function node with a big switch statement and thin that down a little bit.
yeah, if you look here on setup, it's on start rather, it's setting background colors on the initial start, and then on message is where it sends whether the antenna is available, whether the antenna is active, or if it's not available. So what will happen in my Node-RED dashboard, as you see, antenna 1 on the radio is on my G5RB, so it's blue, and antenna 2 is on the Yagi, which is blue. But I was playing around this morning, and what I did is I got to set antenna 2 here on the radio. Come on. Not RFC, antenna 2. Well, here we go. I was playing around this morning, and there you go. What I did is I took 30 meters, which is normally on my 30-meter dipole. Come on, there we go. But I enabled the Yagi and the G5RB, and I was playing around with the tuner to find out. I was trying to work what the heck country was it? But anyway, 9N Nepal, and I was trying to see which antenna I could receive them the best on using the tuner to tune the antennas. And the 30-meter dipole was the best, but they're on FT8 this morning running Foxhound, but I couldn't work them. But this will allow me to show me green means the antenna is available, blue means it's active. So if I click on the antenna, it will switch and then provide feedback. It's going to switch and provide feedback. Come on. It's supposed to anyway. Normally I only have one antenna available per band, so I normally don't have that set up. But again, you know, that just shows me which antenna is currently active. I have 3 antennas here. But any other questions?
I can get Ron to add me to his queue for
Yeah,
making.
just hold on 1 second. I'm gonna mute for a second because I got my wife calling me. I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'm gonna mute. Hold on a second.
Okay. Hey, Ron. Add me to
Yep.
your list for the polar plot maps.
Oh,
Location.
just pop me an email. Pop me an email, and assuming your location is good on
Atlanta is close
QRZ,
enough. Yeah, Atlanta
Yeah.
would do it.
I'll get your lat lawn from a lookup off of QRZ, and I'll send you the maps.
Yeah, I've unfortunately got that lat long.
Yeah,
I could use a missile straight to that part. It would take out my pool.
right.
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
Ron, when you do the map for the rose, the compass rose color, use yellow. Looks better. If you notice,
Yes.
if I do share screen.
Oh, as
again,
opposed to white,
Yes.
white. Okay, I can change it to yellow.
Yeah, so if you look at this, mine here
Yeah.
is yellow.
Yeah.
It just makes it look a little bit better.
Mhm.
And so if I click the map, it just kind of goes and turns. So see W8 WK8P Glenn, did you have any questions? I know you came in kind of late to the game.
Still lots to learn. I still got to pick up my pies and get them set up.
Okay. Well, we recorded the session here. We're just about done, and we've recorded the session, which pretty much was designed to, there we go, turn volume down that, be able to take the Stream Deck and interface into Node-RED, and to either just set up a button to send a command to Node-RED, and also set up a button that would get a status update back from Node-RED and have Node-RED send an image back to the button and set the image according to the status of whatever it is within Node-RED. For example, the Tuner Genius button. So one of the examples we use here, this is a picture of the front of my Stream Deck. And right now the tuner is in operate, so it's green. If I hit the button, it puts it to standby, and you see it goes to gray and it says standby. I hit it again and it goes to operate. So that's getting information, sending a command to the Node-RED, sending through a WebSocket command, and the ID of the button is TGXL state. So to just kind of go over this and reiterate, that comes into the Stream Deck flow here. And if I zoom back out a little bit, the wrong way. And even go down a little bit more. All right, so it comes in over here as a WebSocket in, comes into this node Stream Deck in, which we added in the palette manager. There's a right here, this contrib Stream Deck -ws. So we added that, and that gives us the Stream Deck in. And what that does is it just formats the output that comes in. And so anything with a key down command, when you push a button, it sends a key down. And what I'm doing then is sending it out to my rotor flow, to my DLI web switch, which is the outlets, the Tuner Genius, and the Power Genius amplifier. And so, for example, in the DLI web switch, when I'm coming in with that right here, it goes into the switch node. And again, when in the Stream Deck, you have to identify a button with an ID. So for example, the first power button that I have on the Stream Deck, I have DLI1 as the ID. So anything, when I push that button, it comes in and sends it out, output number 1 here into this first function node. And then it says, if the state of that button is false, meaning that the outlet is off, See, right now, if you look here under one PC, the outlet is on. You look underneath it, it says on. So right now it says, if I push the button and if that state is true, meaning on, it's going to set it to false, meaning turn it off. It's going to send message topic outlet question mark 1 equals. So it's going to send outlet question mark 1 equals and then false. And it's going to send that to the DLI web switch to turn the outlet off. And then I have an event that's going to set the image. And I have images I created, which are in the Stream Deck here. And for example, here, if it's true, it sets this image, which is a base64 image. And we showed how to convert it from a PNG file to base64. And then if it's false, if it's off, it sends this image. And it goes through this image node, which is another node we showed how to download. And this just sets it to the proper formatting using some JavaScript and sends it back out, Stream Deck out, and back to the Stream Deck through WebSocket out. So it formats the image to send back to the button, and it changes the image in the button. So again, this is kind of more of an advanced topic, but I didn't want to go ahead and share these flows with people until we did this video, so people can refer to the video and look at the individual nodes in the programming to see how I got there. How am I taking the WebSocket command in, sending it off to the individual different flows, and then sending it back out. Like this is taking the information this comes from the amplifier here, and then it comes in here, and you get all your different information coming out, what band it's on, the AC voltage, DC voltage, current, so on, and then sending that information back. One of the things is the state is the operate standby, which comes out of the second node here, or the second one. And it's taking that standby, sending it back into here, and using the UI template on the dashboard is what's giving me this button here. And in turn, on the Stream Deck, it's also giving me the same button over here, where it's amp operate or amp standby. So in addition to on the Node-RED dashboard, I have a button on the Stream Deck that I can toggle that allows me to change the amplifier from operate to standby. And then for the tuner, it shows me the status of the tuner, if it's radio 1 or radio 2, or in its case of 6600, antenna 1 or antenna 2, it shows which one is active. If I hit the tune button, it initiates a tune cycle. And I could do the same thing for tuner operate. I'm hitting the button here and tuner standby just by hitting the button on the Stream Deck. And that was kind of what we covered. So again, it's kind of a long video, but it will help people to understand my flows. What was that?
I'll be more than glad to watch it. Like I said,
Yep.
I've got 6 Pis I picked up, and I've got a lot of computers. I used to be a computer tech, but I've got a lot of computers sitting here on the floor from the college, and I'll get things set up, but I've still got my brand new amp. I haven't even really got going. My neighbor cut a tree down during the summer and took out all my wires. So I just now got something up in the tree where I can start hoisting up wires today. So I've been off the air for a while.
Yep.
Lots to learn.
Yep.
Lots to
Yes, there is. Kyle's been doing very good at, for people who were beginners at Node-RED, he's been able to take people that really don't even know computers and how to load the operating system, how to configure the operating system, how to load and configure Node-RED, and then loading basic flows to start. So I think his next session is going to be on Sunday. He'll be announcing the time on the Node-RED group. And so he's got on his website, he's got quite a few beginner videos to get you up to speed. And Yeah, I've got some videos on my YouTube channel, David D. Coons, my last name. And again, I'm going to post these, I'm going to zip up my flows and post them up as a zip file along with the plugins for the Stream Deck, which is important, and my configuration for the Stream Deck. Now I have a 32-button Stream Deck. You can load a 32-button Stream Deck profile into a 15-button device and only use the first 15 buttons, I believe. But at least people can load the 32-button profile into the Stream Deck software and be able to click on one of the buttons in the Stream Deck software and be able to see, how it's formatted. In this case, the title on this button is 210 and SO PAC, South Pacific. And that's a beam heading for me to go to South Pacific. So, and again, what I'm doing is I'm sending a WebSocket command to Node-RED. So it's ws:// and then it's the IP address of the Node-RED server. In this case, they're both running on the same Intel PC. So it's 127.0.0.1/1880, which is the port for Node-RED. And then I'm using /Stream Deck. So the WebSocket listener in Node-RED knows it's coming from the Stream Deck. And then I'm sending the ID for the button as Rotor 210. And just to reiterate, within the Stream Deck program, in the Node-RED programming, what I'm doing here, it comes in over here from the Stream Deck. And this parse input from Stream Deck, it's taking that in, and what it's doing is it's stripping off this substring command is saying start at character 5. Now remember, it starts at 0. So Rotor would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's Rotor. So starting at character 5, now you have the actual azimuth number that's coming in when I push a button, and maximum is 3 characters long. So it's 5,3. And then what I'm doing is I'm doing a parse integer to that to convert it to a number. So the output of that, if I turn this debug is on right here, and I push the button, is I get a 0. If I push the button for Europe, 50 degrees, it's a 50. And then that gets sent into my azimuth input, which in this case, it formats it. I'm using PST Rotator. So this is the command, and then in between it is actually 50. And then a command, on the end of it. So it formats it to send out right here at the UDP out, and that sends it to PST Rotator UDP input. And then I get a reply back from PST Rotator on the UDP input node up here, which in turn sends the azimuth or target, and that sends it to the SVG graphics node, which is the map. Come on, open up. Something new that came up. So anyway, here's my map. So, that's what
You're
it
not
does.
sharing, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, I'm going through this whole thing and I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry about that. But yeah, the bottom line is, as I said, is if you watch the video from the beginning, we've gone through pretty much some good examples of how to use the Stream Deck and have it talk to Node-RED using the WebSocket, and be able to have Node-RED in turn, based on status of a device, send an image back to the button on the Stream Deck and set the button appropriately. So again, a little bit more of an advanced topic, but this will help when I upload my flows. I'll get everything zipped up, all my flows together as one zip file, and people can, what I'll do is I'll get the individual flows together and then put them all together individually into a zip file. So if somebody doesn't have a Tuner Genius, they don't have to load that flow, but this will help to get people going. I didn't want to do this until I had this video that really explained how to create the images in base64 format, how to put them into the function node, and then have that function node be formatted correctly. So we're loading an image in a function node here. And then what we're doing is taking that, if you notice the image here, and it goes quite a long way, but and we're taking that and it's formatting it here through this image node. And then again, setting it with some JSON code, and then sending it out the Stream Deck out node and back to the Stream Deck to do WebSocket out. So these, this video, along with these flows, people should be able to customize and really get their Stream Deck working the way they want.
Hey, Dave, when you package that up, I have a suggestion.
Yeah,
And that is if you could also in a zip file, package up your Stream Deck images, not the base 64, but the
yeah. What I'll do is I'll
72 by
include
70,
yeah. What I'll do is I'll include the images that I've created here for the different devices and stuff, and I'll put all the images together, the plugins, my profile for the Stream Deck, and then the individual flows, and then put all of those together into a zip file. And in the comments in the description of the zip file, I'll put a link for the YouTube video.
great, thank you.
Mhm.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to explain to me, even though you're way over my head. Because like I said, I haven't even put the basic software on the Pi yet or anything else.
Right. On the Node-RED Groups IO site, in the wiki section, there's a wiki that goes through step by step on loading the software. I haven't really played with the 64-bit version of the new software yet, but the 32-bit I've been running on a Pi, it runs fine. Right now, I'm running it on a Intel NUC running under Windows 10. I did that just to play around and experiment a little bit. But my normal production stuff runs on a Pi running the 32-bit operating system. So one thing to keep in mind, if you have a flex radio and you're going to use FR Stack, if you load the 32-bit operating system for the Pi, you have to load the 32-bit version of .NET, and then the 32-bit, the FR Stack. And if you do the 64-bit operating system, then you got to do the 64-bit version of .NET and the 64-bit version of FR Stack. And in the wiki for the 32-bit and 64-bit operating system load, it does cover loading in the proper version of .NET within the wiki. So if you follow the wiki, at the end of the 32-bit, the last section covers loading in .NET, and you only need to do that if you're going to be running FR Stack, and FR Stack is used with the Flex radio.
I've got a Sun SDR2,
Okay,
and I've also got a 7300, and I got a few other rigs I've got to
right.
play around and
And
fix. But
there's some people have loaded up some icon flows that you could probably use, and be able to use that as a starting point towards building something to work with your radio. I know Mike Walker did one for ICOM 970, I think it was. I'm not sure if anybody's done one for the 7300 yet.
I'm not sure either. I do know that, I can't think of his name. I think it's Ed from Island Amplifier. He just made a flow for the what is it? RKS2.
RFK2KS. I made the flow for it.
Oh, okay. You made the flow.
Yeah, the amp that was down at Orlando at Hamcation on the table was sitting in my shack here for 3 weeks. They shipped it to me. They shipped it to me from Germany, and I worked with them as they made the firmware that includes the API, and I did the Node-RED programming to talk to the API and made a flow for it. And then the amp got shipped down to Florida for Hamcation, and I believe they sold it down there.
Mine's still sitting in the box. I got it in May and I haven't gotten it down here. I've had neck and back surgeries, and then with the antennas getting ripped off. So
yeah, well, when you do get it unboxed and upgrade the firmware on the amplifier, the flow is under the amplifier section on the Node-RED Groups IO site.
appreciate
So,
that.
yep. So that, and
Thank you
it does
kindly.
work very well.
Thank you kindly for explaining things.
Okay, George, did you have any questions?
Radio repeater in ALDENA.
George, did you have any questions? So George is in there. I guess not. So Warren, anything else, or Mike, Ron, before we go?
It all looks
Well,
good. I'll see if I can acquire one of those Stream Decks, and then I'll
I like my toys. I'm just a toy monger. So
I have the same problem, and the Stream Deck is very useful. I found it for the RIDI contest this past weekend. I integrated the Stream Deck in to NM1 MM Plus, and never had to touch the keyboard other than the logging.
F4, F2, F4, F2.
Right.
Yeah.
You can arrange the buttons in order on
Yeah,
the Stream Deck the way you want them.
Warren, what you're holding up, that's a Genovation?
yeah.
Yeah, I've played with the Genovation, and what you can do with the Genovation is that the USB that creates a virtual serial port? The
Yes.
virtual okay.
I probably have to do the little HID trick with this one, like we did with,
Well, does it create a virtual COM port, or is that the HID model?
you know, I've only plugged it into the back of the P3, so I can't really tell you.
Okay.
I think I don't
Yeah,
know.
if it creates a virtual COM port, then you just have to create a COM port within Node-RED for it, and you'd be able to plug that straight in.
Yeah.
Someplace over here, I don't even know where, I have my junk. Anyway, oh, there it is. I've got this Genovation. Mine has a serial connector on the end of it.
Ugh.
So we use them in the 911 center. And the call takers absolutely loved them. I programmed them up where they, had a double key, and this one here has clear keycaps on it, so I can actually print labels and put them underneath the keycaps. And so what we did is we had double keycaps and stuff, and so we had an answer key and a release key, and so they had a call coming in, they just hit the answer button, and instead of clicking into the screen for the 911 screen. And it made life a lot easier for them. We had answer release, we had redial. There was a whole bunch of different commands that we had set up in it that they could do. If they needed to do transfer of a call, they could just click the button to transfer, and then from the transfer list on the screen, they would pick who they wanted to transfer to. I was a technical manager at the county 911 center here, and we had a big voice over IP 911 system with two different PSACs, two different answering centers, and we answered 911 for 28 of the 39 towns in the county. So,
by the way, Warren, your flow for the HID trick and the flow for the LP700 work great.
Right. Yep. I just ordered. Speaking of toys.
Thank you.
Speaking of toys,
It was a challenge I had to do.
Yeah. Speaking of toys, I ordered, and I'm not sure how that's going to work, if it's a serial port or not, for the USB, but I ordered a Array Solutions PowerMaster 2, supposed to be shipping in March. So that'll be my next toy to play with and get working. So just play around with that as well. My LP700 is at my friend's house right now. So I said, the watt meter, I need something a little accurate. So I ordered the PowerMaster 2, and from my research, the PowerMaster 2 over a wider frequency range and wider power level is more accurate than the LP100, 500, or 700. So
I've seen a lot for the LP100 because that's been the gold standard.
Right. It's just it's a little bit more accurate over a wider range of frequency and a wider range of power level. So it's a little bit more linear with the sensors.
Does anybody have any pull with Larry Phipps?
I do. What do you need?
Because you remember you sent me his source for that app. That's how I leveraged
Right.
the flow. He's missing the reflected
Yeah,
power
I'm gonna
in the
actually,
data set.
I'm
I
gonna,
I sent him an email. He didn't reply to it. If he can add that in, we can extend the flow to be a little better.
yeah, I'm
And I
gonna
need
actually
it for the-
stop the recording here, so hold on, 'cause